Hello and welcome to another evening of frank conversation on hard copy, coming to you from our studios in Abuja. I'm Maokwe Ogun Yusuf. On Wednesday, June the 12th next week, Nigeria will celebrate a new Democracy Day, having shifted that day from May 29, which simply commemorated the handover of military to civilian rule in 1999. On June the 12th, Nigeria will honor an election widely recognized as the freest and fairest ever conducted in the country on the same day, 1993, and will honor the mandate and memories of the heroes who fought that the will of the people be recognized and respected, which is what democracy is all about, the will of the people. Another of the laudable points of democracy is the enthronement of human rights. In Nigeria, these rights are enshrined in Chapter 4 of our Constitution as amended. However, looking at our journey so far, especially in the Fourth Republic, which is now in its 20th year, how have we fared in upholding the rights of the people? Our guest tonight is Mr. Anthony Ojukwu, the Executive Secretary of the National Human Rights Commission, which was established in 1995 for the promotion and protection of all rights in Nigeria as guaranteed by the Nigerian Constitution, the African Charter on Human and People's Rights, the United Nations Charter, and other treaties which the Nigerian government is a party to. Mr. Anthony Ojukwu, welcome to Hard Copy.
Thank you, Maokwe, and Nigerians welcome to Hard Copy.
Well, I was wondering, you were a member, you were a legal advisor of the old National Electoral Body, the National Electoral Commission, I think was called the NEC, which oversaw the elections in 1993, which was tagged to be very free and very fair. How do you feel about this shifting of Democracy Day to June 12th?
Oh, that's the best thing Nigeria could ever do to our memories for democracy, because really it was on June 12, 1993 that Nigerians rose as one. You remember, that election was so unique in so many ways.
Yes.
One, it was a Muslim ticket. Nigerians didn't bother. They just wanted a president that would be a true Nigerian president. And Nigerians spoke their mind. So when that election was cancelled, of course, people went into the streets. People fought. So for Nigerians, that was the real day the fight to send back the military to the barracks started. It
is in order that that day be recognized as...
It makes perfect sense.
It does.
Makes perfect sense.
Well, I was wondering, I mean, we are now 20 years, it's a long time since that day, but 20 years now since 1999, since we entered this new democratic dispensation. One of the hopes that people had, because that fight to enthrone democracy after June 12 was annulled was a long and torturous one. People lost their lives. And one of the things that Nigerians remember was that human rights were breached. Where would you say we are in our cause to ensure that we enthrone human rights, that they take center place in our democracy?
Well, in looking at the proposal you have made, we must look at our past as well. Where did we start from? Before 1999, it was a period of military rule.
We had tasted something better before.
Yes.
Would you say that what we are currently experiencing is as good as what we had before?
I think we have gone a lot better than that, because there's no way we can compare the human rights situation before 1999 to what we have today. Because today, people can even call the president names on the radio, on the newspapers, on the television. It couldn't have happened those days. The freedom of expression we have now, both in the media and look at the social media.
The freedom of expression might be informed by different things. I mean, people have always been a little vocal. If you look at the fight for independence, for instance, people were vocal. If you look at, I mean, the manner in which people call people names now might be accounted for by another thing. And some people might argue that, you know, that is new in terms of the experience that we're having. But when you look in general, in terms of the security crisis, you look at the violations that people are suffering in terms of what they're seeing in the hands of the police, for instance, and things of the sort in the 60s.
What is happening is that people are now aware and can talk about the violation of their rights. These rights were being violated before, but because of the environment, because of the terror in the land, because of the the situation at hand, people could not voice out their complaints. It's not that those were not happening then. What is happening now is that if anybody violates your right now, you can stand up and tell the whole world. You can go to a Human Rights Commission and complain. There are active civil society groups that can talk about it. It's not really an increase as such, but there is awareness now that if your right is violated, you can complain and talk about it. You can go to court and challenge it. You can even challenge it on the newspapers or radio.
I want to talk about Section 4 of our Constitution. Some lawyers say that, yes, we have very lofty ideals in our Constitution, especially in Section 4, but we have been told is non-justiciable. How do you react to that?
Well, all aspects of Chapter 4 are justiciable. It's Chapter 2 that, you know, there is some argument about justiciability. Section 2 is talking about the fundamental directives of state policy, where it says there should be health should be provided for all, there should be education for all, and all that. But under Chapter 4, we have things like the right to life, freedom from discrimination, fair hearing, and all that, which you can go to court and ask. But the point is, we have moved from the era when Chapter 2 was said to be non-justiciable. Where we are now, for instance, you can actually go to court for the realization of your rights under Chapter 2. For instance, the act establishing the commission says that it can promote and protect human rights based on the Constitution of Nigeria, based on all the international treaties to which Nigeria is a party, based on the African Charter on Human and People's Rights, and all these laws recognize the rights in Chapter 2 of the Constitution as rights. So if in the Commission, for instance, we are using the principles on economic, social, and cultural rights, food, shelter, to resolve complaints people have brought to us, is that not a way of enforcing it? There was a decision by the Commission. You remember the Apo killings, where some Okada riders were shot by the DSS in 2012 or 2013 as if they were terrorists. And the Commission went through that investigation, agreed that, investigated and found out that these people were innocent Nigerians, and handed out a decision about 135 million damages for the families and the bereaved and so on and so forth. And the government did not immediately implement that. The people also went to ECOWAS court and got judgment in ECOWAS court. In fact, what they got in ECOWAS court was almost 300 and something million. The government saw that they could not escape this. So, last year, they called us and now enforced that judgment. So all those people who lost their lives, their relations, and so on and so forth during the Apo killings, they have now been compensated in line with the decision of the Commission. So yes, it might seem, at times these things may seem as if nothing is happening, but things do happen. So it is not totally true to say that those rights there are not justiciable. You know, it depends on the platform you are using, the mechanism you are using, and also if you have patience and you pursue your rights, someday succor will come.
Well, the people who had their rights abused by SARS definitely can attest to this. Some of them who had the courage to come forward and report, you know, were asked to go to the National Human Rights Commission, and only recently you were able to record a breakthrough in that regard. You submitted a report to the president. How did you find investigating the police?
Well, the investigation started by the clamor of Nigerians, because they felt like, and these are all, for me, these are all key indicators of improvement in our human rights awareness and consciousness. Because maybe if it was before, people would not rise up. You remember the End SARS movement. People went into the streets and said, enough is just enough. Government has to do something about this. And as a responsive government, they said, okay, the National Human Rights Commission, you are the custodian of human rights of people, look into these complaints. And so we did advertisement in the papers, told Nigerians, anybody whose rights have been violated by SARS, please can you bring the evidence forward and let us look at it.
How many complaints did you receive? We
received about 113 complaints.
How many were you able to successfully investigate?
We investigated all of them except the ones where we couldn't make headway. There were cases where, of course, probably the officers, like you remember, we asked the IGP to unmask about 22 officers.
What did that mean?
These are officers who have been mentioned in one case or the other, but they cannot be traced. Probably this officer was, of course, you know, we wouldn't have their AP numbers. You know, that is what you can, because if you say somebody is Emmanuel Wokocha, there could be 1,000 of them, but if he has an AP number, you can really trace such an officer. So when these complaints come to us, they only come with the names of the officers. So during the investigation, so of course we issued, based on their last known area of posting, now we issued summons for them to appear. And it happened that those, maybe they have been posted out somewhere, maybe they are now somewhere, maybe they have even retired, maybe they have been sent to somewhere, something would have happened, but we couldn't trace them for them to appear. Meanwhile, there are serious allegations against them, which we think should not be swept under the carpet. So that is what happened. So when we now place all this, these people were now summoned. Of course, we contacted the IGP to give us an officer who will be a liaison between us and the police. Of course, somebody in the rank of an AIG and a DCP were seconded to help the panel in their work. And all the people summoned were also given opportunity to come with lawyers of their choice. And the police as an institution also sent a legal team of about 3 lawyers who represented all complaints against the police and the officers of the police. But individual officers also had the opportunity to bring their own, and some did come with their own personal lawyers. But the fundamentals of fair hearing were strictly accorded. So we now went through these cases. It was as if it was a quasi-judicial trial. Of course, you know that is the kind of function we perform. So everybody was giving fair hearing. And you know, in fair hearing, all we need to do is give you opportunity to come and defend yourself. But the choice is yours. You may decide not to defend yourself. And nobody is going to be hamstrung because you have decided not to exercise an option given to you. What the Constitution requires is that you are given an opportunity to defend yourself, but that choice is yours. You may decide not to. You may decide to accept that you have committed an offense.
In all of your investigations, what would you say you found most shocking?
The one I found most shocking were the cases of extrajudicial killings and the takeover of suspects' properties and torture. These 3 things. The memories are still, I need to go through some psychological, treatment to be able to come over it. You'll be shocked at some of the ways people are being executed extrajudicially. I give you an instance. You will see somebody is in SARS cell. The next thing you will hear that, well, they confess that they were hiding their arms maybe somewhere in Karu. The next thing is, it's okay, we'll take us to where you are hiding your arms in Karu. Maybe a team of about 3 or 4 people were involved in the alleged criminal offense. Now, on the way to Karu, the next thing will be that they were attacked by their gang. No policeman will be hurt. It's only the very 2 or 3 suspects that their gang, so-called gang, wanted to liberate, because I would think that if you are being ambushed because you are bringing your people, it's to liberate their people alive. Now, the ambush will only cost the life of the 3 or 4 suspects that are at the back. So what do you make of that? Was it really an ambush or a tactic to go and eliminate these people in the bush under the guise that they were being attacked? So it wasn't a credible evidence. You don't need to. And then there will be no autopsy. They will take them to a particular hospital. For instance, if something happened in Karu, you will pass through Asokoro. There's no hospital in Asokoro. There's no hospital in the town, and you start taking them to Gwagwalada General Hospital, Gwagwalada Specialist Hospital. So why would you pass Karu, pass Asokoro? You don't take the person to the hospital in Asokoro General Hospital. You start taking the person to Gwagwalada. By the time you get there, you say the person was dead on arrival. So it beats anybody's imagination how you can carry out lawful duties in that way.
Well, let's take a break now. When we return, we will talk more about the rights of women and children, more specifically after this break. Please stay with us. Welcome back. You're watching Hard Copy, coming to you from our studios in Abuja. Our guest tonight is the Executive Secretary of the National Human Rights Commission, Mr. Anthony Ojukwu, and we're looking at how we've fared in enthroning human rights since Nigeria's return to democratic rule. Now, let's quickly talk about the rights of women and children. I'm going to read this, some lines out of this article from May Agbamochiumbu. I think she's now with INEC. She wrote in 2014, she says, lately our newspapers have been inundated with stories about the alarming increase in the rate of rape cases in the country. Nearly every day, one reads sordid stories of rape and abuse of children, their ages as low as 6 years. What is the NHRC? It's still the case today. This was in 2014. It's still the case today. In fact, we have been told about stories in the Northeast about this sex for food scandal. In some instances, it is rape, it is abuse. Only recently in Benue State, that case also came up in the IDP camps. It must be a challenge, and one was wondering, is the NHRC shying away from it?
No, we can never shy away from it. That is our daily duty. I can tell you one of the greatest challenges I used to have when I was the director in charge of investigation. At times you get to your desk in the morning, the very first file you open is the case of, you're even talking of 6 years. There have been cases of children of 3 years, 4 years. You know, these kind of houses where line houses, they call them face me and face you. You know, poverty is a major challenge. I think part of why these rape cases are increasing, or where it's endemic now, is because of the poverty level.
I mean, it would seem that in some instances the law is so weak, or is it that we're not able to diligently prosecute those who are accused of these crimes? I
think it's a cultural thing. The challenge about prosecuting sexual and gender-based violence and cases concerning women and children are also a little bit cultural. I'll tell you the experience we have in the office. A woman has been domestically violated. People will tell her, you want to take your husband to court? That woman that took the husband to court, she now comes and says, please, she doesn't want to leave the house. Yeah,
but if the NHRC has, powers, the amendments in 2010 yes. gave you ensure that your decisions are almost like that of a high court, yes. so to speak. Yes. Shouldn't people be seeing you as some alternative dispute resolution mechanism in such a way that it's not as strict as the court, and perhaps it's even more understanding than how a court situation will be?
No, certainly there are two aspects of our work. There are some human rights violations that are also criminal offenses. Okay. There are some human rights violations that you can treat as pure human rights violations and award damages and so on and so forth. If a human rights violation also amounts to a criminal offense, then you must take the criminal option of prosecuting that person. And the commission does not prosecute. You have to refer that to the police or to the Attorney General to prosecute.
In the wake of this investigation, how would you describe your relationship with the police, with the Nigeria police today?
Well, we understand that we have to work together.
That's where it stops?
We have to work together to make the society better. Okay? You measure a society by the standard of respect for human rights. We appreciate the fact that the police has a challenge in their work, but we insist that no matter what the challenges are, that is not a reason to jettison human rights in the course of their work. The same thing we tell the military. Yes, you are doing a very important work. Without your work, we'll all run away. We will not be able to sleep. But that can never be a justification for you to now violate human rights because you have to do the work of the police.
So would you describe your relationship as tense?
I don't see any tense in it. We're just bringing to the fore what we ought to do. We want to do the right thing. And I don't see why it should be tense, because we are telling ourselves to do the right thing.
Well, the reason I'm saying this is because I'm trying to remember where, I think this was from Amnesty International, when they were asking, the Nigeria police not to harass the NHRC. They had said doctors are reluctant to go to the police station because police detain and label doctors as accomplices, and they beat up those who visit police stations to assist suspects. They also there are a number of other things, but it just goes to point that instead of being, an enabler of the work of the NHRC, it would seem that what you find is that the security agencies are usually a cog in the wheel of your progress.
Of course, we have found cases where our staff who goes to investigate cases or help people who are detained are harassed or even detained at the police station. We now have to go and get them out and so on and so forth. There are such challenges go with our work. We cannot run away from our work because of such challenges. But you see, that is not an institutional problem. It's a peculiarity that relates to individual police officers who are asked to man certain stations. Because you go to this police station, this is the way they're behaving. You go to another one, they're not behaving like that. So it's not as if instruction is given that every NHRC officer comes here, harass him. No, it's not the case. So it's a question of some peculiar officers who decide to take the laws into their hands and do the wrong thing. So that cannot be ascribed as an institutional thing for the Nigerian police. So such officers now have to be dealt with. In the same way, a lot of police officers also respect human rights of people. So generally, if you were to describe where we aspire to be in terms of human rights, moving forward in our democracy, where would you say we ought to be, and what would you be prescribing for us to get there? I would think that by now we ought to be at the level where every law enforcement agent at least knows that what part of his primary duty is the protection of rights. Is a joint mandate between the commission and law enforcement agents, because every law enforcement agent is supposed to protect the constitution of the land. Is supposed to protect the laws of the land and enforce them. And fundamental human rights is part of the law of the land. So what is happening is these are few, maybe out of ignorance as well. And we do train them a lot. We've been on training of the military and the police, but this is a country of 180 million people. It is a challenge. It's a country of 180 million people, and you also have a duty to uphold the right. I mean, of course, in addition to other government agencies, you have the primary responsibility to protect human rights. Would you say that even in the manner in which you are operating, you have efficiently been able to cover the country? I'll give you an instance now. They're saying that mobile phones are available in every nook and cranny of this country, and therefore the NHRC and police helplines should be readily accessible, and if possible, radio jingles can be incorporated into a well-thought-out strategic campaign against the growing menace of, this was in specific mention to rape, that's according to Mayor Agbamuchembu, but in terms of even churning out a jingle, in terms of accessibility of the NHRC, would you say that you've done well in that regard? Well, Mawasi, everything is related to, just like the police is being hammered upon now, and they say we don't have the tools to work. Just like the military is being hammered upon, they say, look, our weapons are not as sophisticated as that of Boko Haram. So you cannot perform more than the tools you have and the resources you have. Within the resources we have, I think we have done marvelously well. It depends on what we are giving. It depends on the strengthening we are giving. It depends on the resources we are giving. But so far so good, would you say that government has put its money where its mouth is? I think the government can do more. The government can do more. Certainly the resources the NHRC has now is a challenge to our work. I think we need to do more. I think we have enormous capacity that we can explode there, and this country will be better protected in terms of human rights. And what we are managing with now is not where we ought to be. I think by now the NHRC should be a lot more on ground. We should have reached every nook and cranny of the country. We should be more effective. I'm not saying we're 100% effective. I'm glad that you admit that. Yeah, we're not 100% effective, but we can do better. It's a fine place to leave it. I have to thank you for coming on Hard Copy, Mr. Anthony Ojukwu. Thank you so much for your time on Hard Copy. Thank you, Mark, for having me. Well, that's the program tonight, but do let us continue this conversation online. How do you feel about the work of the NHRC? Do send your comments using the handles showing on your screen. Thank you for watching. I'm Maokwe Ogunyusi. Good night.